What happens when the narcissist realizes you don't care anymore? Let me ask you, have you ever seen a lion lose control when its prey walks away without fear? That's the moment we're talking about. This isn't just a shift in behavior. It's a war of identity, a collapse of the illusion they built around your dependence. Imagine spending years feeding someone's ego, only to suddenly become emotionally invisible to them. That silence, that indifference, it burns louder than any scream. At first, they'll mock you, maybe even laugh. Oh, you think you're strong now, but deep down, panic starts to swell. Because for the narcissist, your apathy is not peace, it's chaos. It's act one of a story they never prepared for. And just when you think you've broken free, life throws in act two, the retaliation, the test of whether your resolve is real or just a phase. You see, this journey isn't about revenge or victory. It's about reclaiming your voice in a world that once made you feel voiceless. But here's the kicker. What happens in Act 3 isn't predictable, because it's where you decide whether you stay free or walk right back into the cage smiling. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care, their control begins to crumble instantly, not slowly, not subtly, but with a sharpness that slices through their carefully constructed illusion. Narcissists thrive on validation. They need to know they matter more than you, that your emotions are attached to their actions, and that they hold the strings. The moment you stop reacting, stop pleading, stop feeding the dynamic, they sense a threat more powerful than confrontation: silence. Because silence tells them they're not important anymore. Silence tells them they've lost the grip they once held so tightly. And for someone whose identity depends on control, that is devastating. It's not just about your words, it's about your energy. They feel it when your voice lacks emotional charge. They notice when your eyes don't flinch, when your tone doesn't rise, when your attention isn't chasing their chaos anymore. To them, it's like the lights suddenly go out in a theater built entirely for them. Their audience has left. And for a narcissist, an audience is everything. Without someone to manipulate, provoke, or impress, they're left alone with themselves, something they've spent a lifetime avoiding. So when your indifference arrives, it forces a kind of psychological collapse. They begin to scramble. First, with confusion. Why isn't this working? Why doesn't she care that I haven't texted back? Why is he not reacting to my insults? Then comes the panic. They might throw bait your way, little emotional hooks disguised as apologies, guilt trips, or sudden bursts of charm. Maybe they pretend to care, just enough to pull you back in, but something's changed. You see through it, and because you do, they start to sense their tactics are becoming obsolete. That's terrifying for them. It's like a magician realizing the audience finally sees the strings behind the curtain. This loss of control hits deep because narcissists don't love in the way others do. They attach themselves to supply. Your reactions, your devotion, your fear, your emotional investment, these are what fuel them. And when you stop caring, you take away their fuel source. The engine stalls, it sputters, and then it dies. You no longer serve their purpose, and that makes them feel invisible. Narcissists can handle anger, they can even handle hatred. But apathy, indifference, that cuts at the root of who they believe they are. In these moments, they might become crueler, louder, or more unpredictable. It's a last-ditch effort to make you feel small again. Because if they can make you feel small, then maybe, just maybe, they can feel big. But it's a hollow performance, and you know it. That's why the moment you detach emotionally, they start to panic internally. It's ironic, really. The power they thought they had over you was never real. It was borrowed from your willingness to believe in their version of reality, and once you stop believing, the structure falls apart. Some narcissists, sensing their grip fading, may suddenly turn into victims. They might start sharing their own pain, trying to make you feel guilty, trying to trigger your empathy. They know you once cared, and they'll use that memory like a weapon. They may say things like, "I guess I never mattered to you," or "I always knew you'd abandon me." Don't fall for it. It's not vulnerability. It's manipulation in disguise. It's another tactic to reestablish the emotional thread that keeps them tethered to your life. This is the stage where the narcissist realizes they're no longer the center of your universe, and that revelation is brutal. The control they thought was permanent evaporates in front of them. It forces them to confront a truth they've avoided their whole life. They are not entitled to your emotions, your time, or your attention. They never were. But they built their world as if they were, and now that world begins to collapse. Control for a narcissist is not about dominance for its own sake, it's about survival. They control to avoid their own feelings of inadequacy. They manipulate to mask their own self-hatred. So when you detach, when you no longer need them, you leave them alone with the very feelings they've been trying to dump onto you for years. They can't blame you anymore. They can't provoke you into defending yourself, into chasing them, into begging for validation. And without that dynamic, they lose the illusion of superiority. You begin to see their panic in subtle ways, a sudden flood of text messages, accusations out of nowhere, strange attempts to guilt you into a reaction, or maybe complete silence, stonewalling in reverse. But don't be fooled. That silence is not strength. It's fear dressed up as confidence. Because when they realize you truly don't care anymore, they are forced to feel the one thing they never wanted to face: powerlessness. When a narcissist senses that their manipulation is no longer working, something inside them snaps. It's like watching a master puppeteer discover the strings are cut and the puppet is walking away on its own. They begin to shift, and not in a calm, calculated way. The transition from manipulation to desperation is messy, erratic, and sometimes even dangerous. Up until now, their entire relationship with you was structured around control, covert insults wrapped in jokes, emotional blackmail hidden in compliments, and sudden bursts of affection timed perfectly to keep you doubting your instincts. It was a game, and they were winning. But when you no longer respond to their cues, when you stop questioning your worth and start questioning their behavior, the rules change, and they panic. Desperation doesn't arrive with subtlety. It bursts through the cracks of their fractured confidence. They might start love-bombing you again, pouring on praise, giving you gifts, offering apologies that sound almost believable, but you can feel the anxiety behind the words. The charm is shaky now, rushed, forced. There's a nervousness in their voice, an edge in their compliments. They're not trying to love you. They're trying to control the bleeding. It's as if they believe that if they just say the right thing, do the right trick, you'll fall back into the trance. But when that fails, the mask begins to slip further. Manipulation is subtle, but desperation is chaotic. If you don't fall for their charm, they might suddenly flip. Anger, guilt trips, gaslighting turned up to 100. You've changed, they'll say, or I guess nothing I do is ever good enough for you. These aren't genuine expressions of sadness or reflection. They're strategic bombs dropped in the hopes of provoking a reaction, because any reaction, pain, confusion, anger, is still proof that they matter. Desperation doesn't crave love, it craves relevance. And when you offer nothing in return, when your peace becomes louder than their noise, they spiral. Their tactics become erratic, unpredictable. One moment they're apologizing with tears in their eyes, the next they're accusing you of being cold, selfish, or even narcissistic yourself. They'll flip the narrative so fast it makes your head spin. This isn't just an emotional outburst, it's a desperate scramble to find something, anything that still gives them power. Because if they can make you doubt yourself again, they win. If they can make you react, they regain control, even if it's through conflict. The calm silence you now hold is not just disinterest to them, it's war. They may even try to recruit others, friends, family, anyone willing to listen, to paint themselves as the victim. Suddenly, the person who once seemed invincible, untouchable, begins crafting a new identity. The wounded soul, misunderstood and mistreated. They may spread lies about you, distort the truth, create a new reality where you are the abuser, the heartless one, the villain. This isn't just to damage your reputation, it's to reinforce their crumbling identity, because if they can't control you, they'll try to control how others see you. It's a last-ditch effort to maintain dominance, even if it's through illusion. The desperation can even manifest in strange and confusing behaviors. Late-night messages, cryptic social media posts, sudden changes in appearance, or showing up where they know you'll be. It's not coincidence. It's strategy laced with panic. They are searching for any way to matter again, to feel significant, to be the central figure in your emotional world. But your detachment, your peace, your refusal to play the game is the one thing they never planned for. They built their power around your reactions, and now that those reactions are gone, they're left fumbling in the dark. You'll notice the desperation in their eyes, the way they scan your face, looking for signs that their words are working. They'll test boundaries, break promises, and then promise to never break them again. They'll cry not because they're truly hurt, but because they know you care about people in pain. And if you're not careful, that desperation can look like sincerity. But underneath it all is a person who's terrified, not of losing love, but of losing control. That's the heart of it. They don't miss you. They miss the power they had when you needed them, when you doubted yourself for them, when your world revolved around them. In this phase, everything they do is designed to reel you back in, but not to heal or rebuild anything authentic. It's about restoring the old hierarchy where they were the sun and you were just one of the planets revolving around them. Desperation makes them sloppy, reckless, and bold in ways they never were before. And while it may be jarring to witness someone who once seemed so composed unravel before your eyes, remember, this unraveling is not your responsibility to fix. There is something deeply unsettling for a narcissist when they realize they no longer have the ability to affect you. Not just your actions, but your emotions, your inner world, your sense of identity. When your indifference takes over, when your eyes no longer light up at their approval or water at their disapproval, they encounter something far more terrifying than anger or confrontation. They face your emotional independence. That quiet calm in you, that unbothered distance, becomes their greatest fear. Narcissists are driven by control, not connection. They don't need to be loved as much as they need to be needed, envied, feared, or obeyed. Your indifference is the death of that illusion. It tells them you've reclaimed your power, and that terrifies them. They've spent so long carefully crafting situations, conversations, and environments where your emotions orbit around their needs. The praise they gave was selective, the criticism was relentless, and every compliment was a setup for the next emotional withdrawal. They trained you to respond to their voice like a command. So when your reactions fade, when you stop defending yourself, stop explaining, stop waiting for their next move, they lose more than just attention. They lose purpose, because to a narcissist, your emotional energy wasn't just wanted, it was required. It was the fuel that powered their fragile ego, and your indifference is a complete shutdown of that power source. They might pretend they don't care. They may even mock your detachment or act like it's exactly what they wanted. But beneath that performance is an inner storm. Your emotional detachment reveals a truth they've worked hard to deny, that they were never as powerful as they believed. You see, when you stop caring, you stop feeding the story where they are the protagonist and you are the side character. Suddenly, you are the author of your own narrative. That shift is not just threatening, it's unbearable to them. Your calm, steady refusal to react is not interpreted as peace. It's taken as rejection, abandonment, even betrayal. That's the paradox of narcissistic fear. They cannot survive emotional invisibility. As long as you're angry, hurt, or even obsessing over them, you're still involved. You're still acknowledging their significance. But indifference, that signals true detachment. It means you no longer need them. Not for love, not for approval, not even for closure. You've stepped outside their frame, and that move is something they can't understand, let alone control. It challenges the very foundation of their self-worth, because if you can walk away and feel nothing, what does that say about their importance? To a narcissist, it's the ultimate ego death. This is why indifference is so powerful. It's not loud. It doesn't argue. It doesn't chase. It simply exists. And that existence, free from their influence, is what drives them into a state of emotional chaos. They might try to provoke you, insult you, or lure you back in with false vulnerability, anything to get a flicker of the old response. Because even your anger was a form of emotional currency. Now, your silence is a locked vault. Your peace is untouchable. And that quiet power makes them feel small, irrelevant, exposed. They might spiral into new extremes just to get your attention. Sudden declarations of change, exaggerated displays of success, even public smear campaigns to paint you as the cold-hearted one. They'll do anything to reverse the narrative where they are no longer in control. But no matter what they do, what they say, or how loudly they scream, it all comes from the same wound, the fear that they no longer matter to you. Narcissists feed on relevance. When they lose that, they start to decay from within. It's important to understand that your indifference isn't cruelty, it's survival, it's clarity, it's the result of finally seeing the cycle for what it is and choosing not to participate anymore. You're not punishing them, you're protecting yourself. You're choosing peace over chaos, freedom over control, and though they may rage against that choice, it's the one thing they can't undo, because true indifference can't be faked, it can't be weaponized, it's not a strategy, it's a state of being that signals healing, growth, and power. Narcissists fear your indifference because it proves you've moved on without their permission. It shows that their tricks, their stories, their mind games no longer hold weight. It reminds them that they are no longer special in your world, no longer needed or wanted. And for someone who built their identity on being the center of your universe, that is a collapse far greater than any argument or insult could ever deliver. There's a moment after all the chaos, confusion, and emotional exhaustion where you begin to feel something unfamiliar: stillness. Not silence out of defeat, not quiet born from fear, but a powerful stillness that radiates from within. It's in this moment, when you no longer feel the need to argue, explain, or defend yourself, that you start to regain your power. And the most incredible part, you do it without saying a single word. Because power doesn't always arrive with noise or aggression. Sometimes it's in the unshakable calm that follows survival, in the eyes that no longer flinch, in the posture that no longer bends to please or to avoid conflict. That kind of quiet confidence terrifies the narcissist because they relied on your noise, your reactions, your vulnerability, your attempts to make them understand. They counted on your voice to keep the game alive. Your words were weapons they could twist. Your emotions were mirrors they could distort. They pushed your buttons just to hear the sound of your breaking point. But now, there's nothing left to push. The buttons are gone. You've stopped performing, stopped explaining, stopped proving your worth to someone who never saw it. And in doing so, you've taken back everything they once fed on. It's a shift that's almost invisible to outsiders, but deeply felt by the one who tried to keep you small. When you walk into a room and your peace speaks louder than their chaos, when your lack of response becomes your loudest statement, they feel it. They feel the gap between who you used to be and who you've become. There's no need for revenge, no dramatic exit, no final confrontation. Your absence, emotional, mental, spiritual, is louder than any speech you could give. And that's what makes it so powerful. You're no longer looking for closure because you've created it yourself. You're no longer reacting to their manipulation because you've outgrown it. You're no longer driven by the need to be understood by someone who refused to understand. That's the moment the power dynamic flips completely. What once held you captive now looks small and hollow. What once felt like love now feels like a warning. And the person who once made you question your reality now fades into irrelevance, unable to reach you where you've grown. You regain power not by becoming someone else, but by returning to yourself, your values, your boundaries, your intuition. These were the things the narcissist tried to strip away, layer by layer. They blurred the lines between love and control, between concern and manipulation, between connection and dependency. But you see it clearly now. You've reclaimed your ability to think without their voice in your head. You've remembered how it feels to trust yourself. That clarity is a force stronger than any confrontation. It's in the way you choose peace over drama, boundaries over chaos, truth over illusion. The narcissist might still try to reach you, still attempt to bait you with sudden warmth or familiar cruelty, but they'll feel the difference. Your energy no longer bends to accommodate their storms. Your silence isn't confusion, it's conviction. You're not playing hard to get. You're no longer in the game. That realization hits them harder than any insult ever could. They no longer have access to the version of you they could manipulate, and the version you've become is uninterested in their approval. You've stopped chasing validation from someone who withheld it as a tool of control, and that shift, quiet as it may be, is revolutionary. Your power lives in the choices you make now, the ones rooted in self-respect, self-awareness, and self-love. You say no without guilt. You walk away without needing to be understood. You protect your peace as if it were treasure because now you know it is. You've learned that dignity doesn't need to scream and that strength doesn't always wear armor. Sometimes it wears softness, calm, and a steady refusal to be drawn back into the madness. You've grown into someone who knows that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. What once felt like silence now feels like sovereignty. What once felt like fear now feels like freedom. And the narcissist who once lived for your reaction now has to face the unbearable truth they no longer matter. Not because you hate them, not because you want to hurt them, but because you've healed. And healing speaks volumes, even in silence. The more grounded you become, the more chaotic they feel. The more calm you are, the more they unravel. And through it all, you say nothing, not out of submission, but out of power.